Hello, I'm Bette with Bette's Makes, and we're going to be using some basic tools today. Matter of fact, we're going to be using the 7 basic tools, the cheap and simple tools. This is a downloadable that you can find on betsmakes.com in the resource library. So all you need to do is go to betsmakes.com and then go / resource library, as you see on the screen, and you'll be able to download this cheat sheet of 7 basic tools you need to get started with paper crafting right away. And what we're going to do today is we will have 3 different projects. I will make 3 separate videos. So the first project we're going to be making is this beautiful carnation. As you can see, it's made with some crepe paper and a beautiful stem. So this is our first project that we'll be working on today. The other 2 projects consist of a lily and a peony. So for today's project, in order to make this, there are a few things that you are going to need in order to make this happen. A couple of the basic things: a pair of scissors. You'll also need glue. I've got both a tacky glue and a glue stick. Some people prefer a glue gun. I was going to use a glue gun today, and yes, they're very well worth it, but today I want to use the tacky glue because I think that's going to work a little better for me today. You will also need some floral tape. If you don't have floral tape, you can use a piece of streamer, something like this, and you can use that to push across if you don't want to use a floral tape. So floral tape. I've also going to use a floral wire, and the wire is used in the leaves to keep them stiff so that they don't bend out of shape. Now if you don't have any floral wire, this is one I bought at the dollar store, you can use, of course, the pipe cleaners, and I cut a couple of pipe cleaners that I can use in place of the 2 wires. So that's that. You're also going to need a needle and thread. You want to try and get the thread to match the color of what you're going to use for the leaves when you're making the carnation. Now, in order to make the carnation, you can either buy sheets of crepe paper, or as I have used in this case, I just used a streamer I bought at the dollar store. And I think I've got 3 streamers, different colors, for $1. So it's really inexpensive. For the leaves themselves, I used another streamer, and this one being green. So if you want to use the crepe paper and you don't have any, or you can't find any, just head to the dollar store and buy some streamers. It'll work quite well. The other thing that you're going to need, and this is going to be for the stem, you can use wire as before and fold it up, or you can use your pipe cleaner. But I found these really unique items at the dollar store, and these are rubber covered, and they are called rubber covered twist ties for the garden. And I found those at the dollar store as well, and they were $1, and I got a package of 20 of them, as you can see here. So that package of 20, these make perfect flower stems. Now if you can't find that particular material, I found another one in the dollar store, and this is called foam wire. That will also work. Now the foam wire, same thing, it has a wire in the center, but it's covered with foam, and that makes a perfect stem as well because it's bendable. So this one is the foam wire. This other one is the rubber covered twist ties. Both are perfect if you don't want to use the thin floral wire. Sometimes this thin wire, I have to make it 3 and 4 layers in order for it to be perfect for what I want. So I found that these 2 actually work perfectly, no problem. Okay, we'll put those away. Now for the needle, I bought Yarnology, but these needles are a little bit different. They're size 18 to 22. As you can see, they cost $1.59, and I bought this at the Hobby Lobby. And it comes with these needles. I've already pulled one of them out here. But as you can see from this, they're not a really sharp end. They're a blunt end, and it makes it really easy for going through crepe paper. So that is the yarn needle we're going to use today. Now I tried to match my color. I got this red thread. It's pretty close. I just don't want people to be able to see my stitching. So that is just any plain red to go with the crepe paper. So if you're going in to buy some streamers, you want to try and get a thread, or if you already have one at home, that's pretty close in color for doing the sewing. Okay, I have pre-strung mine. Now, we're going to start by making this flower piece. And it's actually quite simple. What I did is I cut 2 pieces of the streamer, and if I measure them across here, they're 16 inches in length, and I just folded it over. So you actually have 32 pieces folded in half. Now, the reason I have clipped them together, because they're going to slide. We absolutely need to take pinking shears to one side, and the reason we want to do that, so we get this nice crimped effect, as you see here in the one that I had made before. Now, I had made more layers before, but I found that the flower was a bit dense. Now, since I don't own pinking shears, but I have a Fiskars rotary cutting tool, I found a blade. If I can open this. A blade that is beveled. So this is going to make a nice crimp edge. So all I want to do, and the clips are here so this paper doesn't fall apart, all I want to do is go through and just crimp the end. It's the important part, so you get a nice little crimp that looks something like this, or your pinking shears, as long as you get something on the go here. I'm using a mat underneath so I don't cut everything up. I just want to make sure I get the tops. Get that cut right through to the end. And that will give us a nice piece of crepe paper that's all crimped on the edges. Now, pinking shears, they're great. If you have a rotary tool, you can look for these blades. They're not that expensive. There are several different shapes of blades that you can get. Now, I don't need this anymore, so I have to remember to put the safety back on and then put it away. I'll put it over here with my other tools. Now, I'm leaving the paper clips in place because I really don't want this to slide around. Let me just discard the extra paper. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do some sewing on this next piece. So I've pre-threaded here, nice piece of red. Not the end. It doesn't matter how big you make the knot in the end. What we're going to do is we're going to use a basting stitch, and we're going to stitch all the way across, and then we're going to pull it tight. So I'm going to start. I'll remove that first paper clip. I just want to make sure the ends are together. So let's now just do some stitching. A nice wide stitch is just fine. And we're going to go right to the end. As you can see, it sort of gathers with the needle, and because the needle has a blunt end, it is much easier to use. At first I was beginning to wonder, and I started to remember that when I was in, I might have been elementary school or middle school, we were learning how to sew on one of the school sewing machines, and they actually had us make clothes out of crepe paper. So we cut the patterns out. We learned without using material, and we made them out of crepe paper, and we actually had to thread the machine with a special needle so it didn't get wrecked from the paper, because this is paper, and you know paper will dull your needle. We're getting there. And we made costumes, and this was actually quite funny because the school put on a small play and we made the costumes out of crepe paper. So this is where I first learned to sew with crepe paper. That was middle school. And I'm almost at the end here. Maybe I should pull some of this through so get it off the needle so I have some room to work. This is actually very simple because you really don't need a cutting machine in order to make this beautiful paper flower. And I just love the result. I had made one ahead of time and I thought, oh, I'm not too sure how this is going to turn out, but I'll tell you, it is just beautiful. And everybody I show it to, maybe they're just being polite, says it's great as well. So we're almost at the end here. And just like any sewing project, I am going to tie it off with 3 stitches. Let's just pull it through right to the end here. Okay, we're at the end. It seems to be coming through okay. I'll just pull it a little tight. And I'm going to give it a couple of stitches so it doesn't come loose. Nope, not quite get that one. Hold on to it this time. And through, and now I'm ready to just cut it off, and I will grab my paper scissors, which are right here. Just cut that piece off, make sure I put my needle away, and I see it came a little bit loose at this end, so I am going to fix that. So now we have the thread in there. You'll see that it's made a nice little circle, but what we want to do is to, hold one end and then pull through the other, because what you want to do is be able to string it together so it makes a nice tight little circle. If you've done a rolled paper rose at all, you'll know that this is the same type of process. So what we have now is a general circle like this. Don't worry about the loose ends right now, because what we want to do is now roll this together. Now you can add more layers to it, but I want this one fairly loose. So all you're doing is rolling this together. This is going to make a smaller one than I showed you in the sample. I'll just give you an idea. So now you can see all of the ends together in this area. Now what you can do is you can make a second layer that goes with this. But once you spread this out, this is going to make a fairly large size, but we don't want to spread it out too much right now because we're going to have to do some gluing. The goal behind this is now I'm going to snip some of these off, put my trash in my little bin here, we can keep the deck clear. So the goal here is now to place some glue here, and also you want to make sure you have your stamen, not your stamen, your stem. So let's just loosen it up a bit. We want to add the stem so it gets glued with everything. So perhaps we should start by just adding it in here and then rolling it again. Simply keep it rolled. I want to keep it fairly tight. So now you have your stem attached. The biggest goal here is to be able to hold it in place. Well, you take some glue, and this time I'm going to use some tacky glue, and I'm going to have to hold it in place for a little bit. I want to glue all of this in place and then just hold it there till it dries. Shouldn't take too long. Add some glue, really make it gooey and gluey. We're going to add some more on top of this, so the gooier you make it, the better. Okay. Glue aside, put the lid back on. I'm going to hold this in place for a little while until all that tackiness is gone. Just make sure I spread it around a bit here. I don't want it going anywhere. And this is where people use the hot glue. I find that the hot glue sometimes works quicker, but I find it a little difficult to work with, even though my hands are pretty messy right now. However, the hot glue, does work well, but this works well because you can just wait for it to dry. Okay, the glue is fairly dry, and what I did is I added a small amount of floral tape just to hide the threads in the ends. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the flower a little bit apart, just separating the layers so you get a real good carnation look. There's quite a bit to separate here. So that's one layer. And so you just pull the pieces apart and it starts to look like a beautiful carnation. Now the one thing you will see in the center is a little bit of the stem, but that's okay because the center of a carnation. Isn't that pretty? It turned out so beautifully. Now this is a lighter version. The one we had done before had done 4 layers of paper, but I found it too thick to work with, so I prefer the lighter version, the smaller one. It looks really good. So now we've actually finished the flower portion. What we want to do now is we want to work with, I'm just going to move these wires to the side. We're going to work with the leaves. Now how the leaves are going to work is a little bit different. I do what you call the double layered leaf. As you can see here, I have 2 layers. When I was doing my demo before, I had written on it, and I have the wire in between the 2 layers. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need to download this template. And then we are going to cut out the template. So I'm just going to do a rough cut here right now so I can get it on top of my paper. Do a rough cut of both. Just so I can place that on top of each one. And you'll notice that one is a lot fatter than the other, and there is a reason for that. It's because I want the second piece of the leaf to go inside. Now I'll just get rid of my paper into my paper bin. Oh, another piece. Now 2 pieces. One's a little wider and one's a little narrower. So we're going to start with the wider one. I just folded a piece of crepe paper. You can use a streamer. The streamer might be a little bit narrow, but then you can just trim the size. So let's just put that over top. I better line it up a little better. You need the long stem at the end, and the reason you need the long stem at the end is because it has to wrap around the stem of the flower. And if it's too short, then you don't have the same effect with the leaf. Okay. See all my great cutting skills here. And when you're using the scissors, don't use your fabric scissors. I did that once and then I ended up having to use a piece of aluminum to make sure that they were sharp. Okay, we're just about there. Get the first one cut out. Now we're going to use glue again. But we're going to glue in, and this time instead of the wire we're going to use, I'll use the pipe cleaner for this particular project, so it may stay in place a little better. So we have now 2 of these leaves. There's those. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this, and this is coming off the streamer. I'm going to need 2 of these as well. Gets our cutting skills going. This one's a little easier to cut out. It doesn't have any extra points to cut out. And get as close as possible. You don't have to be perfect when you're doing these cuts. Just don't cut off the extra piece of the stem. That's all. So now we have the second piece. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to lay the pipe cleaner down the center. And actually, to make that easier, you just give it a little fold in half, just so you make sure that you've got the pipe cleaner in the right area. Don't have to be perfect with it. So it's one little fold like that. And you do that on the crepe paper. And this one, perfectly center, but try to get it so it's approximately in the middle. Because what's going to happen is you're going to put the pipe cleaner there, and then you're going to glue those 2 pieces together with the pipe cleaner in the middle. So you get a really great effect. So I just take this paper away and put it into my scrap bucket, which is right here. Keep all my scraps together. Okay, so now let's take each one of these. Let's fold them in sort of half, just so we have an idea of where that pipe cleaner will go. I have those two in half, and these two. And you'll notice that the grid on this one goes across and this one goes up and down. It doesn't make any difference as long as you can get it cut out. So now the great tricky part. When I was using a wire, the wire kept bending all over the place. But you want to place this almost to the top. It may be a bit longer, that doesn't make any difference. You want to glue this to the bottom of this. And then you want to glue the other leaf on top. So I'm going to use this tacky glue once again. And the reason I'm using the tacky glue is because it gives me a chance to move stuff around if I don't make it perfect. So let's start putting a couple of dots all the way down. Same on this one. Not perfectly straight, but close. There we go. Just put the lid back on. Now let's add the pipe cleaner. In the middle. Let it adhere for a little bit. So it will move around, but that's okay. Right, next pipe cleaner. Straighten it out as much as possible. Put it almost to the top. Glue it down. Okay, the next little part of this is I'm going to add some glue to these. And then I'm going to put the second part of the leaf down. Now when I glue this, I actually want to glue the sides. So I'm going to put glue down each side. Don't move around, leaf. Moving because my hand's in the way. There we go. Do the first one. Since we had folded in half, it's going to be really easy to put over top. And I just glue it down to the sides, so the fold that I made is right in the middle. Glue them together. That's going to make a nice, beautiful leaf when we're done. It has natural edging. Okay, one more. More up here. Go. Lid back on. Now we'll take this one. I had folded sort of in half, so I want it to be folded down and over. Don't worry if you've got extra glue, it will dry. This one dries clear. You see I'm getting a nice look here. And this part will be taped to the stem, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, so that is the leaves. I'm just going to let it dry for a second, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add the leaves here. Today I'm going to use floral tape, but you could use your streamer instead to go over top of it like I had here. I added the streamer. So I think first of all I will add the floral tape. I'll tape those two on, and then we can go over it with a streamer as well to get it that same look. Okay, I have placed one leaf in position. You'll notice I used some floral tape just to hold it in position to see where I want it. You can see how it holds that nice curve. Now I have to decide if I want the next leaf up higher or down below. And all I need to do here is just place it in position. I'm just going to bend it out because we've got that. And I think going to the upper position is going to be the best. So what I'm going to do is temporarily just hold this down with some floral tape. Let's go around here, and I just keep going around. I've got them both covered and in the position I want. It's fairly easy. It's pretty sticky stuff. So now I can bend these any which way I want to be part, and basically that's what your flower will look like. Now if you want to have the stem the same color as the leaves instead of the floral tape, we can use our streamer. Now you don't have to cut it into pieces, but you will have to be careful how you thread it. So for example, if I started here, notice how long it gets, but you want to be able to turn it around and make it fairly tight. Now I find this a bit awkward sometimes with the streamer, but it is possible because you can always glue the other pieces in place. Now so this has got to come tight in between. And there we go. Now we just have to make it fit beautifully all the way to the end. And I find I just let it double over if it wants to double over. Just has a nice effect. And there's the end right there, so I just cut a piece off. I want to be able to hold it in place, so I'm going to fold it up. And here's where I'm going to apply some glue so it stays in place. Now you can use the Elmer's glue as well. I just happen to like the tacky glue. So I can just use little bits at a time. You see I'm pretty well running out of it, but easy enough. So we'll just roll it in the same direction, just so that the glue catches onto it at the bottom. And just check everything's in place. If you find a few pieces sticking out, you can always add later. Now, let's just position our leaves the way we want them. Let's move our glue out of the way. Let's move our streamer out of the way. And now, with my cutting board out of the way, there's our perfect carnation. Job well done.